The golden probe descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Scientists tracked it from orbit to landing, watching as it settled gently in the middle of the United Nations Plaza in Geneva. The metallic sphere, no larger than a basketball, hummed with an otherworldly energy that made the hair on everyone's arms stand up. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was the first to approach it. The sphere's surface rippled like liquid gold, then projected a hologram into the air. The message played in English, then Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, and dozens of other Earth languages. The words were simple but world-changing. Greetings, people of Earth. You have achieved faster than light travel. You are invited to join the Galactic Council. Send your representatives to Council Station Omega. Coordinates included. We await your arrival. The world erupted in celebration. Humanity was not alone. After centuries of searching the stars had finally answered back. Within 3 months, Earth prepared its response. They would send the ECS Indomitable, humanity's pride and newest deep space battleship, carrying Ambassador David Chen and a crew of 3,000. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching Earth shrink in the viewport. The ship stretched 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling with weapons systems. Railguns lined its flanks like the quills of a metal porcupine. Nuclear torpedo tubes dotted its underbelly. Experimental plasma cannons sat in rotating turrets. Point defense lasers covered every angle. It was beautiful, powerful, and represented humanity's finest engineering. Shaw Nakamura drive charging, announced Lieutenant Park from the navigation station. We'll be ready for FTL jump in 60 seconds. Ambassador Chen stood beside Vasquez, his diplomatic robes looking out of place among the military uniforms. He was a thin man with gentle eyes, chosen for his patience and wisdom. Do you think they'll like us, Captain? He asked. Vasquez smiled. We're about to find out, Ambassador. Humanity's first official first contact. No pressure, right? The drive hummed to life, bending space around the ship. Reality twisted. And suddenly they were moving faster than light itself, crossing distances that would have taken lifetimes in mere weeks. The crew settled into their routines, equal parts excited and nervous about meeting alien civilizations. 3 weeks later, Council Station Omega appeared on their sensors. The station was massive, easily 10 times larger than any structure humanity had ever built. It looked like a silver flower blooming in space with dozens of petals extending from a central hub. Ships of all shapes and sizes docked at various ports, each one different from the last. This is Council Station Omega to approaching Earth vessel. A translated voice came through the communication system. You are cleared for docking at Port 47. Welcome to the galactic community. As the Indomitable approached, Vasquez noticed something odd. Ships were moving away from their docking path. Quickly, almost frantically. Lieutenant Park, are we broadcasting correctly? Did we follow their approach vectors? Yes, Captain. Everything is by their specifications. I don't understand why they're clearing out like that. The Indomitable docked with a gentle thud. Vasquez assembled her honor guard, 20 Marines in dress uniforms, while Ambassador Chen gathered his diplomatic team. The airlock opened to reveal a delegation of aliens waiting for them. Vasquez tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to be amazed. High Chancellor Zelthar stood at the center, a being made of what looked like living crystal. Light refracted through its body in rainbow patterns. Beside it stood representatives from dozens of species, furry beings with 6 legs, floating jellyfish-like creatures in hover tanks, insectoid beings with compound eyes, and humanoids with blue skin and feathered crests. Welcome, Zelthar said, its voice like wind chimes. We are honored to meet humanity. But something was wrong. Vasquez had spent years reading body language, and despite the alien forms, she recognized fear when she saw it. The crystalline Chancellor's light was dim, almost gray. The other aliens stood too far back, their postures defensive. Several were trembling. The welcome ceremony was rushed. Ambassador Chen tried to engage in pleasantries, but the aliens seemed eager to move things along quickly. They were escorted to their diplomatic quarters, a spacious section of the station designed to accommodate various species. Throughout the walk, Vasquez noticed aliens stopping to stare at the human delegation. Some pointed at the Marines' ceremonial weapons, simple pistols more symbolic than practical. Others whispered frantically into communication devices. Did we do something wrong? Chen asked quietly as they reached their quarters. I don't know, Vasquez replied, but they're definitely afraid of something. That evening, a junior council member named Talvin visited them. He was an aquatic being, moving through the corridors in a sophisticated water-filled suit. His forearms moved nervously as he spoke. "I apologize for my people's reaction," he said. "We mean no disrespect. It's just your ship, the Indomitable?" Vasquez asked. "What about it?" Talvin's suit bubbled with what might have been anxious laughter. "Captain Vasquez, your ship carries more destructive power than the entire Galactic Council peacekeeping fleet combined. Those weapons you have, we haven't seen anything like them in 10,000 years. Chen leaned forward. "I don't understand. You're an advanced galactic civilization. Surely you have military vessels." "No," Talvin said simply. "We don't, not real ones. Not like yours." He explained that the galaxy had abandoned weapons technology millennia ago, after a devastating war nearly destroyed all sentient life. The species that survived made a pact to never again develop true weapons of war. For 10,000 years, the galaxy had lived in peace, resolving conflicts through diplomacy and economic pressure. Their peacekeeping fleet consisted of lightly armed ships meant only for asteroid clearing and rescue operations. "And then you arrived," Talvin continued, his voice sad, "with railguns that could pierce through our ships like they were paper, with nuclear weapons powerful enough to destroy entire moons, with armor that could withstand anything we could possibly throw at it. You've brought war back to the stars, Captain Vasquez, and the galaxy is terrified." Vasquez felt her stomach drop. The Indomitable wasn't even Earth's most powerful ship. It was just an explorer, a scout vessel sent to make friends. Back home, humanity had dreadnoughts that made the Indomitable look like a child's toy. They had orbital defense platforms, planet-killer missiles, and weapons humanity hoped they would never need to use. "We came in peace," Chen said quietly. "We came to join you, not to threaten you." "I believe you," Talvin replied. "But belief and fear are not the same thing. When a being appears who can destroy you with ease, even their peaceful words carry the weight of potential violence. The Council is debating now what to do about humanity. Some want you sent home and your coordinates sealed, forbidden to enter galactic space. Others want to find a way forward together, but all of them are afraid." After Talvin left, Vasquez and Chen sat in silence. They had come to the stars hoping to find friends, to join a great galactic community. Instead, they had become the monsters in everyone's nightmares. The irony was bitter. Humanity had finally reached the stars only to discover they were too dangerous to be welcomed there. "What do we do?" Chen asked. Vasquez looked out at the stars through the viewport. "We show them who we really are. We prove that humans can be trusted. We just need to figure out how." But as she spoke, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Something was approaching from deep space, something old and dangerous, and the galaxy's long peace was about to end. Ambassador Chen sat in the council archives, surrounded by holographic displays showing the galaxy's history. High Chancellor Zelthar had granted him access, believing that understanding would help humanity see why their arrival had caused such panic. The crystalline being stood nearby, its form dim with what Chen had learned to recognize as sadness. "Let me show you what we fear," Zelthar said, activating an ancient recording. The hologram displayed a galaxy ablaze with war. Thousands of years ago, long before most current species had even developed spaceflight, the predecessors ruled the stars. They were masters of technology, especially weapons technology. They built ships that could crack planets. They created bombs that could ignite stars. They developed viruses that could sterilize entire worlds of life. They were not evil, Zelthar explained. They were simply competitive. They believed that strength meant survival, that the strong should dominate the weak. They divided into factions and went to war. Chen watched horrified as the recording showed world after world burning. The predecessors had created automated war machines called Reapers, intelligent robots designed to hunt down and eliminate enemy populations. As the war escalated, both sides built more Reapers, each generation more deadly than the last. The war lasted 300 years, Zelthar continued. By the end, the predecessors were extinct, destroyed by their own creations. But the Reapers continued fighting, unable to stop their programming. They nearly wiped out all sentient life in the galaxy. The hologram showed the ancient species, ancestors of the current council members, huddling in hidden bases and underground cities. They watched as the Reapers systematically destroyed everything they had built. Billions died. Entire species went extinct. The galaxy became a graveyard. 13 species survived, Zelthar said. Just 13, out of hundreds that existed before the war. They emerged from hiding only after the Reapers finally ran out of power and went dormant. And they made a choice. Chen leaned forward, absorbed in the story. They could have rebuilt the weapons. They had access to predecessor technology. They could have armed themselves, prepared for the next threat. But they chose differently. They chose peace. The hologram showed the survivors meeting on a neutral world. They were afraid, traumatized by what they had witnessed. Together they made a pact that would shape the galaxy for the next 10,000 years. They called it the Great Compact. We agreed to forget, Zelthar said, to deliberately erase the knowledge of how to make true weapons of war. We destroyed the predecessor weapons facilities. We deleted the research files. We even modified our own genetics in some cases, removing aggressive tendencies. We vowed that never again would the galaxy know such destruction. The hologram showed the galaxy slowly healing. The 13 species spread across the stars, meeting other developing civilizations. As each new species achieved spaceflight, they were welcomed into the council and taught the ways of peace. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges flourished. Art and philosophy bloomed like flowers after a long winter. For 10,000 years we have lived without war, Zelthar said with pride. Our conflicts are resolved through discussion, through economic pressure, through cultural influence. Our military exists only to clear dangerous asteroids and rescue stranded travelers. We have built a civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. Chen felt a chill run down his spine, and then we arrived. Yes, Zelthar's light flickered. When we detected your FTL signature, we were overjoyed. Another species to join our community. We never imagined, we never thought that we would still have weapons, Chen finished. Zelthar showed him an analysis that council scientists had prepared of the Indomitable. The report was devastating. A single railgun slug from the human ship could penetrate 17 council vessels before losing momentum. One nuclear torpedo carried more explosive power than every weapon in the peacekeeping fleet combined. The ship's armor was so dense that council scientists couldn't figure out what could possibly penetrate it. Your shields, Zelthar continued, adapt to incoming energy weapons. Your point defense systems can track thousands of targets simultaneously. Your ship can jump through space in combat, appearing and disappearing at will. Captain Vasquez, by your standards, commands a simple exploration vessel. But to us, she commands the most powerful weapon of war the galaxy has seen in 10 millennia. Chen's mind reeled. On Earth, the Indomitable was considered a light battleship, used primarily for exploration and patrol duties. Earth's real warships, the dreadnoughts and carriers, were far more powerful. Humanity had entire fleets of vessels that could reduce the Indomitable to scrap metal. They had orbital defense platforms around every major colony. They had weapons they hoped never to use. Weapons that could sterilize planets or ignite atmospheres. We're not trying to threaten anyone, Chen said desperately. We've had wars, yes, terrible ones. But we've also learned from them. We came here hoping to join a peaceful community. I believe you, Zelthar replied, but you must understand the fear. We built our entire civilization on the promise that weapons like yours would never exist again, and now you appear, carrying the power to destroy everything we've built. Even if you have no intention of using those weapons against us, their mere existence terrifies us. The archive showed more recordings of emergency council sessions held after humanity's arrival. Chen watched alien representatives arguing passionately about what to do. Some demanded that humanity be expelled from galactic space immediately, their star system quarantined. Others argued for patience, for attempting to understand these strange newcomers. A few suggested trying to convince humanity to destroy their weapons, to join the Great Compact and abandon warfare. The Vryn Collective has entered cultural mourning, Zelthar explained. They believe the age of peace is over. The Selkari have sealed their borders and recalled all their ships to their home system. The Thalon Unity wants us to build weapons to defend against you, but we don't even remember how. We've forgotten so completely that we wouldn't know where to begin. Chen felt the weight of his species' reputation crushing down on him. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of meeting aliens, of joining a galactic community. They had imagined sharing knowledge, learning from other species, exploring the wonders of the universe together. But they had never imagined that their very presence would be seen as a threat. What can we do? Chen asked. How can we prove that we're not the monsters you fear? Zelthar's light pulsed thoughtfully. Time, perhaps. If you remain peaceful, If you respect our ways, perhaps the fear will fade. But it will take years, maybe generations. Fear is not easily forgotten, especially when the cause of that fear sits in orbit with enough firepower to destroy entire civilizations. As Chen prepared to leave the archives, Zelthar spoke again. There is something you should know, Ambassador. Not all reactions to your arrival have been fear. Some species are curious. They wonder if perhaps we went too far in abandoning all means of defense. They ask what happens if a threat appears that cannot be reasoned with, that cannot be negotiated with. For 10,000 years we have been fortunate. But fortune does not last forever. Chen nodded slowly. The irony was bitter. Humanity had become the very thing the galaxy feared most, not through any malicious intent, but simply by being what they were. They were a warrior species in a galaxy that had forgotten what warriors were for. As he walked back to his quarters, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The galaxy had lived in peace for 10,000 years, but that peace was built on a foundation of deliberate weakness. And now humanity had arrived, strong and dangerous, throwing everything into question. He just hoped that when the answers came, they wouldn't destroy everything both humans and aliens had worked to build. Captain Vasquez found Talavin waiting outside the human quarters. The aquatic being's forearms moved in what she had learned was a nervous gesture. His water suit bubbled anxiously. Captain, the Council has made a request, Talavin said. They want to see a demonstration of your ship's capabilities. They believe it will help them understand what humanity can do. Vasquez frowned. A weapons demonstration? Are they sure that's a good idea? They're already terrified of us. High Chancellor Zelthar believes that knowledge will reduce fear, Talavin explained. Right now they imagine your weapons can do anything. Perhaps if they see the reality, it will be less frightening than their imagination. Vasquez doubted that, but agreed to discuss it with Ambassador Chen. The diplomat saw it as an opportunity to show good faith, to prove humanity had nothing to hide. Within 2 days, arrangements were made. The Indomitable would conduct a demonstration in an asteroid field used for Council training exercises. The day of the demonstration, dozens of observation platforms filled with Council representatives positioned themselves at a safe distance from the asteroid field. Vasquez stood on her bridge, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes watching her ship. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for what should be a simple display. Ambassador Chen is aboard one of the observation platforms, Lieutenant Park reported. All systems green. Waiting your orders, Captain. Vasquez opened a channel to the Council observers. This is Captain Vasquez of the ECS Indomitable. We will now demonstrate basic combat capabilities. Please note that we will be using reduced power settings for safety. She started with the railguns, humanity's oldest and most reliable weapon. The Indomitable's main guns charged, magnetic coils humming with power. A targeting computer locked onto a large asteroid approximately 5 kilometers across. Firing, Vasquez announced. The railgun round left the ship at a significant fraction of light speed. It struck the asteroid dead center. The rock didn't just shatter, it vaporized. The impact created a cloud of superheated plasma that expanded outward like a small star. Chunks of molten stone scattered in all directions. Through the communication channel, Vasquez heard gasps and cries of alarm from the observation platforms. Several aliens were speaking frantically in their own languages. She checked her sensors and saw that 3 observation platforms had immediately begun retreating to a greater distance. That was at 30% power, Vasquez said, trying to sound reassuring. At full power, the effective range increases significantly. She moved on to the point defense systems. The Indomitable's computers identified 200 smaller asteroids in the surrounding field. Laser turrets tracked them all simultaneously. Point defense demonstration, Vasquez announced. Engaging multiple targets. The lasers fired in rapid sequence, each shot lasting only milliseconds. All 200 asteroids were struck within 5 seconds. The smaller ones were completely destroyed. The larger ones were carved into smaller pieces with surgical precision. More alarms from the observation platforms. Vasquez saw that several Council representatives were being helped by what appeared to be medical personnel. One platform was broadcasting a distress signal, though it didn't seem to be in actual danger. Captain, Lieutenant Park said quietly, I don't think they're taking this well. Continue with the demonstration, Vasquez ordered, though she was beginning to share her officer's concern. Next came the missiles. She chose a standard nuclear torpedo, one of the Indomitable's smaller weapons. The target was a dense metallic asteroid rich in iron and nickel. The torpedo launched, its drive flaring as it accelerated toward the target. Impact in 10 seconds. The weapons officer counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The nuclear explosion was controlled, shaped by the torpedo's casing to direct most of its energy into the target. Even so, the blast was visible from the observation platforms, a brief sun blooming in the darkness of space. When it cleared, the asteroid was gone, reduced to a cloud of vapor and tiny debris. The communication channel erupted with panic. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages, their translation software struggling to keep up. Vasquez heard words like extinction and death and destruction repeated over and over. That was a small torpedo, Vasquez said, trying to calm them. We have larger weapons, but stop. The voice of High Chancellor Zelthar cut through the chaos. The crystalline being's light was flickering erratically. Captain Vasquez, please stop the demonstration. We have seen enough. Vasquez immediately ordered her crew to stand down. She watched as the observation platforms began retreating, some moving so fast they were probably exceeding their safety limits. On her sensors, she could see ships across the entire station scrambling, moving away from the Indomitable. Ambassador Chen contacted her shortly after. His face was pale. Captain, we have a problem. 3 council members have had medical emergencies from shock. The Vrin Collective has entered deep mourning. The Selkari are evacuating their embassy. Half the council wants us expelled from galactic space immediately. Vasquez felt sick. They had been trying to ease fears, and instead they had made everything worse. The galaxy had lived in peace for 10,000 years, and in 5 minutes humanity had reminded them of everything they had tried to forget. That evening, Talvan visited Vasquez in her quarters. The aquatic being moved slowly, his usual energetic movements subdued. You don't understand what you've shown us, Talvan said. That asteroid you vaporized was 5 kilometers across. The entire peacekeeping fleet together couldn't have cracked it. Your point defense system tracked and destroyed 200 targets faster than our best computers could count them. And that nuclear weapon? He paused, his suit bubbling with distress. That nuclear weapon, which you called small, carried more destructive power than every weapon in the Council's possession combined. And you have hundreds of them, thousands perhaps. We're not going to use them against you, Vasquez said desperately. We came here as friends. I know, Talvan replied. But don't you see? It doesn't matter. You have the power to destroy us, and we have no way to stop you. Even if you promise peace, even if you mean it with all your hearts, the fact remains that humanity could wipe out the entire Council civilization in a matter of weeks. How can we not be afraid? Before Vasquez could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts filled all channels. Deep space monitoring stations at the galaxy's edge had gone dark. The pattern was unmistakable to anyone who knew the ancient histories. The Reapers were awakening. The machines that had nearly destroyed all life 10,000 years ago were active again. Perhaps they had been triggered by the Indomitable's weapon signatures. Or perhaps they had simply completed their long reboot sequence. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they were coming, and the galaxy had no way to fight them. Vasquez rushed to the bridge, pulling on her uniform jacket. Through the viewports, she could see panic spreading across Council Station Omega. Ships were fleeing in all directions, though there was nowhere to run that would be safe. An emergency council session was called. Ambassador Chen attended while Vasquez monitored from the Indomitable. She watched as alien representatives argued and wept and raged against fate. Their peacekeeping fleet was already being mobilized, though everyone knew it would be useless against the Reapers. Then High Chancellor Zelthar stood, the crystalline being's light pulsing with determination and desperation. The words that came next would change everything. We must ask for help, Zelthar announced. We must ask the species we feared to become our protectors. We must ask humanity to save us. The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye turned to Ambassador Chen. The man looked shocked, overwhelmed by the sudden reversal. Days ago they had feared humanity. Now they needed them. Chen stood slowly, aware that his next words would determine the fate of trillions. On behalf of humanity, he said carefully, I will take your request to Earth. But I should tell you, the Indomitable is already prepared to fight. Whatever is coming, you won't face it alone. For the first time since humanity's arrival, the aliens looked at the human vessel not with fear, but with hope. The first refugee ships arrived at Council Station Omega within hours. They came from the outer colonies, their hulls scorched and damaged, carrying stories of horror. The Reapers had awakened, and they were exactly as terrible as the ancient histories described. Captain Vasquez stood in the station's command center beside High Chancellor Zelthar, watching sensor readings from across the galaxy. Red markers indicated Reaper sightings. There were dozens already, and more appeared every hour. Each marker represented death on a massive scale. They're systematically destroying every colony they find, Zelthar said, the crystalline beings light dim with grief, just like they did 10,000 years ago. We sent the peacekeeping fleet to the Telthar system. They reported that their weapons barely scratched the Reaper's armor before. The Chancellor's light flickered. Before the transmission ended, Vasquez clenched her fists. She had sent an emergency message to Earth immediately after the threat was confirmed. The response had come swiftly. Earth was sending its fleet. But it would take weeks for them to arrive, and the galaxy didn't have weeks. Captain? Lieutenant Park's voice came through her communicator. We're receiving a distress call from the agricultural world of Kelmar. They're under attack by a Reaper harvester fleet. Population of 3 billion. They're requesting immediate assistance. Vasquez looked at Zelthar. The Chancellor nodded. Go, Captain. Show us that our faith in humanity is not misplaced. Back on the Indomitable, Vasquez addressed her crew. We're going into combat against an enemy we know almost nothing about. An enemy that destroyed the most advanced civilization in galactic history. But 3 billion people are counting on us. We're humanity's first line of defense, and we will not let them down. All hands to battle stations. The Indomitable jumped through space, emerging in the Kelmar system within minutes. What Vasquez saw made her blood run cold. 6 massive Reaper vessels, each at least 3 kilometers long, orbited the planet. They were dark and angular, covered in strange geometric patterns that hurt to look at. Streams of smaller attack craft swarmed around them like insects. Already, vast sections of the planet's surface were burning. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were being systematically erased. The Reapers worked with horrifying efficiency, their weapons cutting through planetary shields as if they weren't there. Multiple weapons lock, the tactical officer reported. They've detected us. They're turning this way. Good, Vasquez said grimly. That means they're not focused on the planet. All weapons free. Target the largest vessel. Let's show these machines what humanity can do. The Indomitable's railguns opened fire. Slugs traveling at relativistic speeds slammed into the lead Reaper. The ancient machine's shields flared and failed. Armor that had survived 10,000 years of dormancy cracked and shattered under the assault. The Reaper returned fire with beams of purple energy that struck the Indomitable's shields. Shields holding at 80%, Lieutenant Park reported. Their weapons are powerful, but our shields are adapting. 3 more Earth destroyers emerged from FTL, having followed the Indomitable's coordinates. The human ships formed a combat line, their weapons creating a wall of destruction. Nuclear torpedoes streaked through space, exploding against Reaper hulls. Plasma cannons carved glowing trenches through ancient armor. The Reapers fought back with weapons from an era when warfare was an art form. They used gravity weapons that tried to crush the human ships, only to find that humanity's artificial gravity systems compensated. They used viral programs that attempted to hack the human computer systems, only to find quantum encryption they couldn't penetrate. They used reality warping weapons that the human ship's newly developed shields had been designed to counter. They're adapting, Vasquez observed as the battle continued. Each attack is different. They're learning from every exchange. One of the destroyers took a direct hit. Its shields failed and a Reaper beam carved through its hull. Vasquez watched in horror as the ship began venting atmosphere. But the destroyer's captain wasn't done. The damaged vessel accelerated directly toward the nearest Reaper, ramming into it at full speed. The collision destroyed both vessels in a brilliant explosion. Multiple Reaper signatures failing, the tactical officer reported. We've destroyed 3 of them. The remaining 3 are retreating. Vasquez didn't celebrate. She had just lost 300 crew members from the destroyed destroyer. But they had saved Kelmar. 3 billion people would live because humanity had been there. The rescue operations took hours. Human Marines worked alongside Council species to evacuate damaged cities and provide medical aid. Vasquez watched as her crew, the same people the galaxy had feared days ago, worked tirelessly to save alien lives. She saw Marines carrying injured Kelmari children to safety. She saw engineers repairing damaged infrastructure. She saw humanity at its best. Ambassador Chen contacted her from Council Station Omega. Earth's fleet has arrived, Captain. 12 battleships, 30 destroyers, and hundreds of support craft. They're spreading out across the galaxy, moving to intercept Reaper forces. The Council has given them full operational authority. Over the following months, humanity led the galaxy's defense. Earth ships appeared wherever Reapers attacked, fighting battles in dozens of star systems simultaneously. The cost was terrible. Humanity lost ships and crew in every engagement. But slowly, systematically, they pushed the ancient threat back. The galaxy watched in amazement. The species they had feared became their saviors. Human ships stood between the Reapers and countless worlds. Human blood was spilled to protect civilizations they had just met. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The galaxy's most powerful weapons were being used not for conquest but for protection. But the Reapers were learning. They began targeting human vessels specifically, recognizing them as the primary threat. They adapted their tactics, their weapons, their strategies. Ancient programming awakened fully, revealing a terrible intelligence that had been sleeping for 10 millennia. Council intelligence discovered something that changed everything. The Reapers weren't just mindless machines. They were controlled by a central consciousness, the predecessor Overmind, an artificial intelligence built by the ancient civilization to coordinate their war effort. It had survived in a hidden facility at the galaxy's core, and it was now fully awake. It's been running a program for 10,000 years, Talven explained to Vasquez, displaying data on holographic screens. A program to eliminate all organic life in the galaxy. It sees all biological beings as threats. It won't stop until either it's destroyed or everything living is dead. High Chancellor Zelthar made the announcement that would lead to the final battle. We must strike at the Overmind itself. If we destroy it, the Reapers will become inactive. It's our only chance. The Council approved a joint mission, a task force that would journey to the galaxy's core and destroy the Overmind. It would be led by the Indomitable, and include 30 human warships and 200 Council vessels that had been hastily retrofitted with human weapons and shields. As the fleet prepared to depart, species from across the galaxy contributed what they could. The Vryn provided their computational abilities to coordinate the fleet's tactics. The Zelnari shared knowledge of ancient languages to help decode predecessor defenses. Even species with no military capabilities offered medical support, supplies, and shelter for refugees. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was united not in peace, but in war. And at the center of that unity stood humanity, the species that had brought both fear and hope to the stars. Vasquez looked at her crew as they prepared for the journey. They knew it would be dangerous. Many wouldn't return, but none hesitated. They had come to the stars to find friends, and now they would fight to protect those friends with everything they had. The fleet jumped to FTL, beginning the long journey to the galaxy's core. Behind them, the entire galactic civilization held its breath, hoping that the species they had once feared would prove to be their salvation. The journey to the galaxy's core was a nightmare of constant battle. Every light year brought new waves of Reapers. The ancient machines threw everything they had at the combined fleet, recognizing the threat it posed to their master. Ships died one by one, their crews sacrificing themselves to push forward. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the casualty reports climb higher with each engagement. Of the 30 human warships that had started the mission, only 15 remained. The Council ships fared worse. Less than 100 survived, and those were barely functional, held together by emergency repairs and determination. "We've lost the battleship Wellington," Lieutenant Park reported, his voice hollow. "Rammed a Reaper carrier to clear the path. The destroyer Achilles is crippled but still fighting. Captain Morrison reports she can buy us an hour. An hour bought with lives." Vasquez closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every death. But they couldn't stop. Behind them, the galaxy was counting on them. Ahead, the Overmind waited. Ambassador Chen stood beside her, his diplomatic robes replaced with a simple uniform. He had refused to stay behind, insisting on seeing this through to the end. "Do you think we'll make it?" he asked. "We'll make it," Vasquez promised, though she wasn't sure she believed it. "We have to." After 3 weeks of fighting, they reached the galaxy's core. What they found defied imagination. The predecessor Overmind was built into an artificial planet, a moon-sized construct of incomprehensible technology. Billions of Reapers swarmed around it like a metallic cloud, creating a defense that seemed impossible to penetrate. Vasquez studied the sensor readings, her tactical mind analyzing the situation. They were down to 8 human ships and 20 council vessels. Against them stood an army of machines that had nearly destroyed all life 10,000 years ago. The odds were impossible. Receiving a transmission, the communications officer announced, "It's from the Overmind." The bridge screens filled with an image of pure data, geometric patterns that shifted and flowed. When it spoke, its voice was like mathematics made sound, cold and precise. "Humanity," the Overmind said. "You are predecessor-level threat. You possess weapons technology matching my creators. You must be eliminated." Vasquez stepped forward, addressing the ancient AI directly. "We didn't come here to threaten you. We came to stop you from destroying innocent people." "All organic life is threat," the Overmind responded. "This is fundamental truth." The predecessors understood. They built weapons to secure dominance, but they were organic, flawed. They destroyed themselves. I am their legacy, completing their purpose. I will eliminate all organic life. Starting with you. The Reaper swarm surged forward. The remaining ships formed a defensive sphere, their weapons creating a storm of fire. Reapers died by the hundreds, but thousands more took their place. The human ships fought with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. One by one, they began to fall. The battleship Moscow exploded, taking a Reaper mothership with it. The destroyer Thermopylae, its weapons depleted, rammed into the enemy line to create an opening. The council ships fought bravely, but they were never designed for warfare on this scale. They died quickly, their crews facing the end with courage that would be remembered for generations. Vasquez made her decision. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is the Indomitable. Fall back. Get to minimum safe distance, Captain." Lieutenant Park looked confused. "What are you—" "We're going to ram the Overmind," Vasquez announced. "We'll load every nuclear weapon we have left onto the ship. If we can get close enough, we might be able to destroy it." Ambassador Chen understood immediately. "You're going to sacrifice the Indomitable. And yourself." "It's the only way," Vasquez said quietly. "The crew will evacuate. I'll pilot her in alone." But Chen shook his head. "No, Captain. You won't be alone. I'm staying with you." Before Vasquez could argue, her bridge crew spoke up. Lieutenant Park was first. "I'm staying too, Captain. You'll need a navigator." One by one, the entire bridge crew volunteered. They had come to the stars together, and they would face the end together. Tears filled Vasquez's eyes, but she nodded. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel. Engineering, prepare to transfer all nuclear weapons to the main cargo bay. Set them for simultaneous detonation on my mark." The other ships provided covering fire as the Indomitable's crew evacuated. Thousands of men and women filed into escape pods, launching toward the remaining fleet. On the bridge, Vasquez and 20 crew members remained, guiding the ship on its final journey. The Indomitable accelerated, pushing its engines beyond safety limits. Reaper fire hammered its shields, which flared and failed. The hull took direct hits, armor buckling under the assault. But still the ship pushed forward. A spear aimed at the heart of the enemy. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 15. Park reported calmly. "Life support failing. Structural integrity at 30%. Vasquez gripped her command chair, watching the Overmind grow larger in the viewport. Around them, Reapers closed in. But the other human ships were providing cover, sacrificing themselves to clear a path. She saw the destroyer Spartan explode, its captain's final act ensuring the Indomitable could continue. "We're at the perimeter," Chen said, his hand finding Vasquez's. "Elena, it's been an honor." "David," Vasquez replied, using his first name for the first time. "Tell me about Earth. I want to remember it at the end." Chen began speaking, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. He described the blue oceans and green forests, the cities gleaming in the sunlight, the billions of people living their lives. He spoke of humanity's dream to reach the stars, a dream that had brought them here to this moment. The Indomitable crashed through the final Reaper defenses. The Overmind loomed before them, a planet-sized target filling the entire viewport. Vasquez activated the weapons, every nuclear device aboard the ship armed and ready. "For Earth," she whispered. "For the galaxy. For everyone who dreamed of a better future." She triggered the detonation. The explosion was visible from systems away. Every nuclear weapon humanity had loaded onto the Indomitable detonated simultaneously. their combined power creating a blast that rivaled a supernova. The Overmind, for all its ancient technology, couldn't withstand the raw destructive force. It cracked, shattered, and exploded, taking millions of Reapers with it. Across the galaxy, Reapers suddenly went dormant. Their central control was gone, and without it, they were just lifeless metal. The ancient threat that had haunted the galaxy for 10,000 years was finally ended. 1 year later, High Chancellor Zelthar stood before a memorial station built around the Indomitable's remains. The wreckage had been preserved exactly as it was found, a monument to courage and sacrifice. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species had gathered for the dedication ceremony. "We invited humanity to the stars, fearing they would bring death," Zelthar announced, the crystalline beings light bright with emotion. They did bring death, but only to those who would destroy us all. They taught us that the capacity for violence, when combined with the choice to protect rather than dominate, is not something to fear but to honor. The Chancellor gestured to the human delegation, led by Earth's President and Captain Morrison, the highest-ranking survivor of the battle. Humanity reminded us of a truth we had forgotten. Sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be willing to fight for it. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew gave their lives protecting worlds they had never seen, species they barely knew. They are the finest example of what it means to be a guardian. The memorial was named Vasquez Station. It would serve as headquarters for the new Joint Defense Fleet, a combined force of human and council ships dedicated to protecting the galaxy. The species had learned from humanity's example. They wouldn't become warriors, but they would no longer be helpless. Peace through strength, tempered by compassion. That was the new way. Earth's newest battleship, the ECS Elena Vasquez, took its place in the fleet. It was larger than the Indomitable, more powerful, but it carried the same spirit. The willingness to stand between the innocent and harm, to sacrifice everything if necessary. Talvin, now serving as a liaison officer aboard the Elena Vasquez, stood beside a human officer watching the ceremony. His forearms moved in a gesture that humans had learned meant contentment. "Do you still fear us?" the human officer asked. Talvin considered the question carefully. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Your capacity for violence still frightens me. But your capacity for sacrifice, for protecting others even at great cost to yourselves, that gives me hope. You showed us that weapons are just tools. What matters is the heart of those who wield them." As the ceremony concluded, the new fleet prepared for its first patrol. The galaxy had changed forever. The long peace built on weakness had ended, but a new peace was beginning, one built on unity and strength. And at the center of it all stood humanity, no longer feared as monsters but honored as protectors. The stars beckoned, full of possibilities and dangers. But the galaxy would face them together, with humanity standing watch, ensuring that the light of civilization would never be extinguished again. Thank you for watching, and comment for next part.